What's up, everybody? It's your boy KG. We got episode 10 of Free Knowledge. I want to say thank you guys for tuning in for 10 weeks straight, continuously just, hearing the content and showing your love and support. I really appreciate you guys. And then, secondly, with this being the 10th episode, I want to do something special. As you guys know, with the book launching a little bit over a month and a half ago, I had the opportunity to be on different interviews with IG Live, Facebook Live, people, different podcast platforms. And I thought to myself, like, why not allow somebody to interview me that knows me personally? And when I thought of somebody that knows me in and out, I wanted to, think about my wife. So I was like, a lot of times you guys hear me talk about her and all the support that she provides for me. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and bring her on the 10th episode, allow her to interview me and ask me some different questions, and then we can kind of just have a good dialogue and just give you guys some free knowledge and know a little bit more about us. So I just want to say, to introduce my wife, again, I love my wife. She's very wonderful, great mom, great wife, and a great supporter. And to no further ado, this is my wife, Aubrielle Goff, but I call her Aub, and I love her the most. So this is my wife, and here she goes.
Oh, thanks, babe. You're so sweet. So hey everybody. I am Aub, and so with interviewing my husband, I have a different perspective, and so I thought it would be great to have some questions that I didn't tell him about, right? So we can get some transparency. Not that he's not true to who he is, but to just get a different perspective. From someone who knows him in and out every day, every moment, right? So let's get to it. So let's talk through relationships, right? You talked about your book, and I have had the opportunity to read it. I still go back and I read different chapters as I'm getting into my devotional. But when we think about relationships, how did you prepare yourself as a man to go from being single and entering into a serious relationship?
That's a good question, and it's funny because she definitely. We talked a little bit before this to give you a sidebar about, because normally when I do interviews, people give me the questions in advance. So we did something different where she's just doing these questions that she already had, and I didn't have the opportunity to go through. So this is a good question to start off. I think with transitioning from being single to married, I think that was a huge step for me because being in a single life is completely different from when you're married, or even changing your vision of like looking to be in a relationship. Like your whole lifestyle change, your mindset change, your spirituality change. And I think the biggest thing for me was having a foundation of growing up, being in church and knowing who God was. I always had that in the back of my mind, but I was so into my flesh. And I think when it was time for me to say, you know what, like I realized being single, it didn't fulfill me, talking to different people, like it never fulfilled me. So I realized in my mind, like, you know what, I know what's right. I have to stop what's wrong, and then I have to truly seek true relationships. And I think that kind of goes back to how we started, being friends with purpose and just truly just talking to each other, getting to know each other, going to premarital counseling, all those different things. I wanted to make sure I did the right steps with meeting you because I really liked you, and I didn't want to go about it the wrong fashion. So I think that was the biggest transition for me, was to just basically change my mindset. That was spiritually, just to say, okay, you know what, like I wanna give my all to this the right way, not just be half stepping with where I'm going with my life. And I wanted to build a solid foundation to have, our future, our kids, and set a standard that where our marriage can glorify God. So that's how I was able to make that transition.
I think that's good, babe. And he talked about friends with purpose. So, just to give a little background, when we first met, just getting to know each other, it was a series of questions. And of course, going into your faith was one of the first questions. And I remember going on an ice cream date, and I was about to dive in, y'all, like get into my ice cream, right? And he's like, you're not about to pray about this ice cream. And I was like, oh, he a man of faith. Okay. So I think friends with purpose is huge, right? To just say what that looks like of this vision of our friendship? And is it just going to be in a friend zone? Is it going to be purpose into something different? And so, with both of us having that mindset that we wanted to have something purposeful, I think is really important. So, for those who are entering man woman into that friendship, maybe into something more relationship, it's very important for you to identify what that looks like, so that you both are on one accord, right?
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. Great point, babe.
Oh, thanks. Okay, guys. So let's get into something a little bit more. So, Courtney, you talked through your book. It's a series of, chapters. And so, for the men listening, or even women, what chapter in your book would you encourage individuals to dive into and just spend a little bit more time?
Wow. Honestly, I would say it would probably be between two different. If I had to pick one, I would probably say realization. Or, know what? I have to go back. I'm gonna take it back. I would say evolution. I'll say evolution. And the reason I pick evolution is because what happens, and I've learned from my personal experience that as a man, like we said with the first question, going from single to married, like you have to evolve. We all are evolving every single day. With through different seasons of our life, we're evolving. And what happens is that when you evolve, sometimes you can evolve and your friends don't evolve. Sometimes you can evolve and your family won't evolve. Sometimes you can evolve and your coworkers, and it can just go from any segment of your life or your relationship. You could be in a relationship with somebody when you first started and you're evolving and that other person is not evolving, and then it turns you to a point where you're like, okay, you know what, you have to look at it and say, you know what, I have to find someone else that's on my same level. So I think for me, evolve is evolution would be the biggest chapter that I would say, because I think we're all at a point where we're all evolving, especially with this current season that we're in now. It's causing us all to change. It's all causing us to shift our normalcy and be a better version of ourselves. And I think the best way to do that is through God. So if I would say one that I would encourage people to continuously read over would be the chapter on evolution.
I think evolution is a great chapter. Speaking of evolution, I remember when we were going into the chapter of moving in together and we
Mm-hmm.
had to evolve, right? And it was a big
Mm-hmm.
struggle bus because y'all, I wanted to keep my stuff and he wanted to take everything out, and that was a true season of, do I really love this man? Because he make me throw everything out. And I think we actually argued, to be
Yeah, we
transparent.
did. We did. We
And
definitely did.
I think it's, one of those steps where you give yourself away and you're putting the other person first,
Yeah.
because you're starting that chapter
Mm-hmm.
together. In marriage, you are one. And so it took some time for me to get there, but we got there. Thankfully, my husband, thought about my feelings still and kept some of my stuff in storage. But y'all, it was a true struggle bus. I was like, he's taking everything away from me. But look, we're in a whole different state. We have the opportunity to have brand new things, and
Mm-hmm.
we look around and we're just fully blessed. So I think that's a good chapter, babe.
Yeah, I agree. And that was definitely a period where we both had to evolve, and I think that comes from, as you said, like when you become one with someone in marriage. There's things that I like to do. That is the way I like to have my place set up. I was a bachelor, so I was okay with having shoes and clothes maybe scattered around. Where to her, she wanted
Puppies.
me to she wanted me to clean stuff up, but it didn't make one of us better or one of us less. It just was one of those things where we had to come together. We had to say, okay, compromise and work together and say, hey, this is something that I'm willing to compromise on. It's something you can compromise on, but then coming to a common ground to have agreement. Because one thing is like for example, when we talk about I was like, hey, I think we should get rid of some of this stuff, but then I had to go back and consult with God and say, you know what, I want to make my wife happy because, like they say, happy wife, happy life. And I didn't want to go through starting a brand new marriage, moving in with each other. And it's like, okay, we're starting off on a bad foot. So I realized, as husbands, we have to die, have to die to be the man of the house. We have to die to ourselves and just put our wives, our kids first. And so for me, that was what we had to go through. But I think that helped us out to be where we are today. So it's all about compromise.
Good deal. So, on the topic of evolution, it's not coincidental. Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I said it right, y'all. But along those lines, when you think about influential leadership in your life, a lot of times we say our father, our mother, possibly a brother, and you did talk through that your brother was one of the main reasons of writing the book from all of the teachings and things of that nature. But when you look back, maybe even outside of your father and your brother, for those maybe who are, don't have a father or don't have a brother and are single, you know, what is it? Like only child. Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice, or not what advice, but who would be most influential for you?
Outside of my family, wow, that's a tough one. I probably would say honestly, and I don't want to sound cliche, but I would honestly say God. Because what I've realized in life, even when sometimes you can go to your family and your friends and you can ask for all this advice, and sometimes what I realize, either like they'll tell you something, but then you'll still receive it, but then you'll still think like, okay, that didn't get me, that didn't fulfill me, that's not everything that I need. And I realized when I took the time to build that relationship with God, and I used to hear people say, like, oh, Christianity is it's not a religion, it's a relationship with God. And I think that when I truly got to that point where like, okay, this is a relationship with God. Like when I wake up in the morning, I thank him. That's the first thing I do. And throughout the day, I'm talking to God and he's talking to me. And it's like, wow, like that's when it becomes a point when it doesn't matter of who you have in your life, because all the people that we have in our life are gonna go at some time. We all have a time that we're all gonna be gone, but the most consistent thing, the most persistent person is God. So even if you don't have anybody, you're like, man, I do talk to God, I do pray to God, I do open my Bible. I just say just to continue to keep doing that, because that shows that your heart is for God. But then as you continue to get into a deeper love for God in your relationship with him, then that's when you'll realize that's the only person that you need in your life. Like, and I think that kind of goes to something that me and Aub, we talk about, is that, we always say that like she's my number two, and some people are like, well, like how's she your number two? Like my number one is God, and then my number two is my wife. So I think that just shows where my relationship is and her relationship is with God, because we both know that we're number two on our list and that we put God first. So that has to be your most important relationship that you have, and that you look to him for anything. And if you don't have anybody, maybe you don't have a brother or a father or a mother, maybe you might have an aunt, you might have an uncle, maybe that person in the neighborhood that you go to the community center, or a person at the church. There's many different ways for you to find mentors, positive people to be in your life, and even websites where people do it for free. So definitely always utilize all your resources. Don't let the devil tell you that there's no one around you that doesn't care about you, that's there to support you. There's always somebody there. Reach out, find somebody, get involved at a church, get involved with a youth group, just different circles of friends that will just encourage you. So that would be my way that I would say, to answer your question, babe.
I think that's really good. Thank you for sharing that. So, when did you realize you wanted to be a husband?
That's a good one. Honestly, I would just say like once I got done with college and I was like in my last year of grad school, and I just said to myself, I was like, yeah, being single is just not fulfilling. You have times when you're by yourself. And for me, I never wanted to be by myself. I always wanted to have someone that I can look up, gray hairs, and we got kids running around, grandkids, great grandkids, and just say, wow, like look what we built, you know. So I think that was the biggest thing for me when it hit me when I was in college, because once you get to that point where you're leaving college, like, okay, wow, like I'm really grown, like I'm grown. I got, you know, my degree, I got my own place, car, all this stuff. But I'm like, okay, now I need to complete it. I need to find somebody else, my other half, to make a whole. So I think that was the thing. And then also too, just when I met you, you know, to keep it real with you, you know, when I met you, and it's funny because when I met my wife, I told her, like, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna marry you, you know, you're gonna be my wife. And she looked at me and kind of laughed like I was playing, but I was dead serious. And I'm a pretty smooth cat, so I don't really say that's not like a pickup line. So when I met her and I seen her, and I just observed her, you know, for a while because we were just friends, and I just observed the way that she moved and was professional, and just the way she dressed, the way she carried herself. I was like, wow, like she looked like she'd be a great mom, a great wife, you know, just everything all tied up in one. So that was another thing too. Beyond that, just to add on to, is that when I seen you, I was like, yeah, she the one, boy, she the one.
He's so silly. So for those who are feeling grown, like you said, right? Um, what chapter in your book would you say for them to dive into when or while contemplating entering the season of being married?
That's a good one, babe. Wow, I think if I had to think about a specific chapter, I would say I think it would be between trust and adversity. And I probably would even throw forgiveness in there. And I say that because with being married, you have to prepare your mind to know that it's going to be ebbs and flows to it. You have to have a mindset that, you know, you're going to forgive each other, and then you have to trust that other person. Like, and I think that's one of the biggest things when you get to a point when you're like, okay, I want to marry this person. I think that's one of the biggest differentiators with being single to being married, is that, you know, when you're single, you trust people, but you don't really trust them all the way. But when you get married, it's like, you know, my finances, you know, my debt, you know, everything that I've done, you got it. Here it goes. So that's the trust part. And then I think, you know, just looking at it from the forgiveness, you have to forgive each other every day. You have to give mercy to each other. You have to give grace to each other, because you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes, but you have to have that continuous love for one another. So I think those three I would kind of put all together. You know, was it forgiveness, trust, and then I couldn't think what was the first one I said. I couldn't remember. Adversity. Wow, yeah, adversity is definitely gonna be one. Kind of going back to what we said, we're moving in with each other. You know, that's a first lump of adversity, because as you know, you're in that honeymoon phase. You first meet somebody like, wow, I love this person. Like, oh man, it's so perfect, it's so great, and then you're like, boom, that first argument. You know, and it's like, man, I don't even want to be with this person no more. Like, I don't even want to be with her. Like, but it's like those are the things right there that you have to have with getting your mind geared for marriage. Is adversity, getting over those obstacles, but then also having trust in one another, and then having forgiveness. And I think if you have those things, you know, some other things that you need too, but out of the book, those three chapters I would say for sure to touch on.
Those are good. And I think for those who have went through the book and read through it all together, you know, if you are in a season within, you know, your relationship, whether that's marriage or in the early stages of dating, to just go back and highlight those chapters and highlight the things that you may be battling with, or things that are going well, to know what to continue to do, right? Those things are truly important. So, I mean, we are truly newlyweds. And so 2 years in, and, you know, we have a daughter. So what advice would you give those just entering, you know, marriage, or thinking about entering marriage? And if there's a chapter in the book that you might have them highlight, you know, what chapter would that look like?
I think the biggest thing for me would truly be, yeah, because, you know, definitely, yeah, 2 years in, that's where we are with our marriage, and it's a wonderful thing. I've enjoyed every day of it, you know, the ups and the downs. And I think the biggest thing that I can say for anybody that's kind of in this stage right now, just getting married or thinking about getting married, is to just, you know that it's gonna be a challenge. Like, it's not gonna be easy. It's like any other relationship that you have in your life. You have to have that mindset of like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not a quitter. And if you have that mentality already, then that's perfect. You know, you have to meet somebody else that has that same type of mentality, that stick to itiveness, where it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter what's going on. We're gonna get through this, you know. And if you, when you make that covenant with God and you guys get married, like me and my wife, we talked about that before we even got married. It was like, you know, divorce is not an option. You know, it's not an option. We're always going to communicate with each other and have great conversations to just build each other up and learn how to get through it. So I think that would be the biggest thing, like being ready to, you know, go to war, because the devil literally sees two people coming together and they're both standing on God. He wants to break that apart instantly. So you have to realize who the enemy is. So when an argument comes up and it's about a fork, or argument comes up about, you know, making the bed or something that's like, come on, you know, this is minuscule, but it's like, okay, let's step back. Let's look at this. Oh, hey, you know what? You want me to do that? Okay, I'll do that. And it goes back to compromise, but then also knowing who your common enemy is. Your spouse is not your enemy, but the devil is. The devil is literally trying to break you guys apart. So I think that's the biggest thing to kind of take away and have that mentality going into your marriage. And I think if I had to correlate it to a chapter in a book, I would say validity. Because I feel like a lot of times as men or as women, when we're trying to find ourselves, we're trying to figure out who we are, we're trying to validate who we are. You know, when we meet this person, like, oh, you know, you're putting your best foot forward on that first date and when you're meeting them, but you have to realize that, you know, we're enough. You know, God has made us who we are. We have a purpose for what we're here for, and we're all unique, you know. So I think that you have to have that validation from yourself, because you can't get into a marriage and say, okay, oh, I'm gonna think Aub's gonna validate me, or she thinks I'm gonna validate her. No, you have to already know the number one in our life, God, has already validated us by sending his son to die on the cross for us. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would connect to in the book, would be validity. And then also too, is that we have enough chapter. We already have to know before we go into marriage that we have enough. Like what God has given us, we have enough. And then once you bring that to another person, you guys become one. Now you guys are full, you guys are complete, and now you have to start back over to rebuild yourself up again because you're connecting with someone else. So that was how I would connect it to the book, and the advice that I would have for all the newlyweds or people thinking about getting married, or even if you're still in marriage and you've been in for a while. Advice is good advice. So I'll leave that right there.
I think that's really good. I think, you know, just being married and you come into it and, you know, you've had these things that you've done your entire life. And then now you have someone else to come in and you're like, ooh, okay, I can't do that no more. Okay. And so you have someone else to think about. And then when you bring children into it, you know, that's just another layer. So, of course, we don't know everything, but we're just going based off of our, you know, trials and seasons that we've gone through so far. So I think this has been really good, really good advice.
I agree.
You know, relationship advice never goes away. And so we just really encourage you guys to, you know, share with each other. You know, if you have some, you know, relationship advice, you know, put it in the comment box. Help us, you know, help pour into us as well. So this has been fun. Ooh. I started off a little shaky, but I think maybe I found my other purpose.
I told you, I said I knew that you would be good at this. And this is crazy because most times when I do my podcast, like I have to cut it a couple of times. And for her, she went straight through. So good job, babe. I'm going to give a hand to my wife. Thank you. Did a great job. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate, you know, interviewing me. I thought this was great. These are some questions that I didn't get from other people. So you definitely surprised me with a couple of them. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode 10 as much as we have. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you click the subscribe button. Also click the notification bell, like button, and then also leave your comments. Like my wife was saying, if there's things that you guys want to share for advice or things that you really enjoyed from this episode, please share it. Also, lastly, if you guys haven't purchased Little Brother Spiritual Motivation for Christians, please go online right now to Amazon and purchase that book. And I also put the link in the comments below so you guys will be able to have that for quick access. The ebook and paper book is available. Ebook is on sale for $2.99, so please take advantage of that. We love you guys. Peace out. Hope that you have a great weekend. Love is love. Peace.